with the population. It's another episode of Do Rap at the Cape Road. I know I've been gone for a little bit, but I've been trying to work on how I'm going to do this podcast and think correctly. You know, writing scripts and whatnot and not just freestyling. Trying to see how that works out for me. Since I've been figuring that out a little bit, things have been going on. Obviously, there's still a genocide happening in Gaza and, Palestine by the hands of the West, using their vassal state, Israel. Obviously, there's what's happening in the Congo with the pillaging of its natural resources and minerals and whatnot, and rampant child labor and the funding of military groups and just trouble all over. And in Sudan, same thing. There's two warring factions, the SAF and the RSF, both fighting for power over the people and both being backed by Western powers. The RSF is actually being backed by, if I'm not mistaken, a United Arab Emirates. And that's just not big news for some reason. And then obviously in Haiti, I think they were finally able to send over military in regards to Kenyans, but Kenya is a part of NATO, but not really. And so that's going to be another vassal state for the West against the people. So that stuff is still happening. And in the States, we have the debate between two very, very, very elderly men, and that's gonna be fun to watch. I'm not gonna watch it though. Just the highlights, just the memes that are gonna come from that are gonna be great. And also, we got the NBA draft just passed. Didn't watch it. Didn't even know it happened. But that's like a big thing in America because America is all about distractions. So the NBA Finals just ended not too long ago. And unfortunately, the Boston Celtics have won. I'm from New York, so I naturally don't like Boston. And also, I'm black, so Boston doesn't like me.
You hate Boston?
Because they racist as fuck. That's why. Nasty. They will say anything. And it's fine. I mean, fuck, it's my life.
Which is wild because Boston is like historically like a blue city. It's supposed to be like liberal and whatnot. But the wealth disparity in Boston as far as white to black is very telling. The way in which police treat black people as far as even athletes. Like Dee Brown, when he was a basketball player playing for the Boston Celtics, got pulled over. I think he got guns pulled on him. It's a lot of wild stuff happening in Boston. But the Boston Celtics have won the NBA championship. Well, yeah, for the 23-2024 season. Ooh. Jaylen Brown won the Finals MVP. Shout out to him. While playing in the city, it's a city of champions because, the Celtics, that's their 18th banner. I think they got the most in NBA history. What Tom Brady's devilish ass did with the Patriots, they got 6 rings. And obviously, again, they're just number one in racism, at least close to the tri-state. Because again, I'm from New York, and Massachusetts ain't that far away. I think. I don't know. I suck with maps. Jaylen Brown, though, he won Finals MVP, and he's addressed the Boston fan base in prior interviews in regards to the anti-blackness that's been shown. And what's even wilder about Boston is that the mayor in 2020 actually declared racism a public health crisis in Boston, a blue city. You just let that marinate for a little bit. But again, Jaylen has spoke about the racism he's, witnessed and faced in Boston. One time he was talking to the New York Times and he let them know, I definitely think there's a group or an amount within the Celtic nation that is extremely toxic and does not want to see athletes use their platform, or they just want you to play basketball and entertain and go home. And that's a problem to me. Yeah, they just want you to shut up and dribble. Boston is basically Fox with borders.
So keep the political commentary to yourself, or as someone once said, shut up and dribble. We'll be right back.
Shut up, bitch!
What's even wilder, there's stories for days, like I said. Marcus Smart, he used to play for the Celtics. He's been on the Grizzlies, I think, for the past year. Former Defensive Player of the Year, point guard, whatever have you. In 2020, he had told a online publication that he had a racist, I can't say that word, a racist encounter with a fan, like a not pleasant one. And it was somebody that was wearing an Isaiah Thomas jersey. Isaiah Thomas, former guard for the Boston Celtics, got a hip injury, he gave his all. Actually, he played a playoff game like the day he found out his sister passed away. And
tears from one of basketball's biggest stars, Isaiah Thomas of the Boston Celtics, being comforted by a teammate. Thomas decided to play in the game just a day after the tragic death of his sister in a car accident.
He played hurt, and then he ended up getting traded, and then kind of worked his way out of the league because of injury and stuff like that. He wasn't a bad player, but he was a smaller guard. It was a defensive liability, and that hip injury really hindered him. But I think he plays overseas now. Nevertheless, Marcus Smart, he was trying to help a lady that was crossing the street because traffic was coming by, and he was in his car. And so he tried to let her know about the oncoming traffic. And her response, as soon as he said that, she looked at him while wearing that Isaiah Thomas jersey. Isaiah Thomas is a black man. She looked at this black man in his face. This black man that was currently at the time playing for the Celtics. Isaiah Thomas wasn't on the team no more. So she may have been a big fan and may have also not like Marcus because he took his spot, even though wasn't, whatever. She told him, and I quote, "Fuck you, fucking nigga."
Shut up, bitch!
What? I'm trying to help you not be hit by a vehicle, you and your child, by a lot of vehicles, and rather than saying thank you, or even, I guess, being flustered because you're trying to get across the street or whatever have you, and maybe you just waving, you take the time to look me in my face and curse me out for wanting to help you out. Yeah, but that's Boston. Jalen has spoken out and shown solidarity, though, with causes like the ending of the occupation of Palestine. For instance, he's worn a Free Gaza bracelet. He wore it to a game. I think he even had a game winner in it. He hasn't really vocally spoke out in the media outlets from what I've gathered. But, that Free Gaza bracelet is saying a lot, considering that you're playing in a system that doesn't want you to speak. They just want you to shut up and dribble. He's also observed Ramadan and, he's observed prayer times. He hasn't really told the media if he's Muslim or not, but he's observed Ramadan, like I said, numerous times, and he's observed prayer times. Excuse me, a little flustered. First time with the script. But his thoughts on Ramadan is that it's an amazing time of the year. It's a bunch of people all over the world participate, and I'm just one of those people who just kind of falls in line, Brown said. It's an amazing month to celebrate. It's about your strength. It's about your focus. And this isn't, the first time he celebrated Ramadan, because he had celebrated it in 2022. And he said, it's something that saved my life in a lot of ways. It's more about faith, more off the court, stuff that you work on, your belief, and things like that. And all that stuff kind of goes together, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. But they all play a part in each other. I definitely think it's more about your faith and your spirit and your belief than it is about your physical nature of things. Sorry, about the physical nature of things. So, as you see, Jalen is a very passionate person. He is, his views on certain things are kind of shrouded in somewhat secrecy. They're kind of cryptic because again, he hasn't really let people know if he's Muslim, not that you have to. and he hasn't directly said anything about Palestine was happening there, although he's worn the Free Gaza bracelet, and he's spoken out like to defend Kyrie Irving when he felt that he was being railroaded when he was going through a situation in in Brooklyn. So, although he doesn't directly always speak, he does show, like, cryptically in some ways, and, like, subtly in some ways, because you still got to get the bag if you're going to play this capitalism game, I guess. But his coach, Joe Mazzulla, has also spoke out about the genocide in Palestine, but from a more neutral, both sides are suffering kind of perspective. Like, Mazzulla told reporters he has twice visited Israel and experienced some of the social dynamics up close. He told reporters that the weight of history and the threat of violence is palpable. It doesn't matter where you are, right? Mazzulla said. Whether you're Muslim, whether you're Jewish or Christian, Israeli or Palestinian, like they're all people and they go through a lot of dangerous times and situations. So, I get that you visited Israel for yourself, the 2 times that he's went, and he plans on going, some other times, the 2 times that he's went, and you've gathered that there is a crisis, like there's a problem there. But how are they framing this for him is what I would really like to know. For him to come back with that kind of analysis where it's more sounding as if this is a neutral thing going on, what are they showing him? What do they show people when they go to stolen Palestine, aka Israel? Because to kind of both sides, that sounds insane when you consider the fact that there is checkpoints with armed guards, that there's not an airport in Palestine, that they have basic things like chocolate, like banned from going in to their small part of land that they were graciously given by the Western overlords. How are they showing the dynamics there for you to come back with that? It's very wild. But Joe's faith is never in question, as he seems to lean towards Christian Zionist side of the spectrum, wanting to follow the path of Jesus, literally. Like,
you might as well get it on camera. If we win championship this year, we're flying to Jerusalem and we're walking from Jericho to Jerusalem. And it'll be kind of like just our reconnect. But we went last year and we stopped right along this mountainside of the Kidron Valley. And you could see a path in between the mountains of, like, during the time, it was the only way he could have gotten from Jericho to Jerusalem was through this valley. And right there I was like, we have to walk that. Most people go to Disney World or whatever, but we went on, I think that's the most important place to go back and recenter yourself,
So, he's a devout Christian, very strong within his faith, feels attached to this land, but lives in the States. But I wonder how it's framed to him that he's kind of seeing it from almost a fantasy kind of standpoint, where it's like, oh, this is so amazing. Like you're in awe, like you're at a museum or something. I don't know, because you're just so overwhelmed with the joy that you have for being able to see things that represent something that you believe in heavily, which I completely understand. But again, how are they framing Israel to him when he goes there? I would love to know what a tour in Israel is like, how they don't show you the bad parts. Like, how it just seems wild. And that's not to say, like, that it's impossible not to show the bad parts. But when you consider the media coverage, even before what was happening, like, became so polarizing in the West, how do they frame that? Yeah, you can still find ways out of it, because people will still go to Jamaican resorts, and there's still, like, parts of Jamaica where there's, like, you might have somebody living in, like, a shanty kind of shabby situation that don't look like the resort, and you will see the real locals and you be like, oh, that don't look like the resort, and it's because they push you away from the real Jamaica. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to know, how do they resort people when they go over there? But it's fair to assume that Joe aligns with Christian Zionism, although this is only speculation and in no way making claim that he is on the extreme side of Christian Zionism. Although visiting Israel numerous times and having what seems like a knowledge of the apartheid state that the people of Palestine face, it does make you wonder, like, where he stands in all of this. Doesn't it? Whatever. But what is Christian Zionism, you might ask? Well, I'm going to tell you. Because I know, because I've forced myself to learn these things. Christian Zionism is a term that is predominantly associated with Christian Zionism is a term that is predominantly associated with theologically conservative Christians who believe that the modern nation state of Israel is the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Contemporary Christian Zionists believe that Israel's creation in 1948, its expansion in 1967, and its flourishing are all evidence that God continues to have a special relationship with Jewish people. So, if you know the full history, you know that in 1948 was the Nakba. That's when Zionists came, forced out about 700,000 Palestinian people, the indigenous people of the land, and killed a bunch of folk and stole land. And in 1948, that was just like the height of it, but they've been doing it since like 1918, where they were, and that was with the Balfour Declaration, where they were just taking land. I mean, there was legal migration into Palestine, and then it became illegal because they were just like, yeah, no, just give me. And then it hit a head in 1948. And in 1967, if you know the full story, was the 6-Day War. That's when Israel expanded by stealing more land from like Egypt and I think from Syria and whatnot, because the powers that be that control Israel, that work with the West all together, they want that whole region. Like, they've even shown maps, and I believe on their uniforms, like the IDF soldiers have a picture of what the greater Israel looks like, and it's all encompassing, like taking over like Lebanon, Syria, like all of these places. So yeah, Christian Zionism on the extreme ends is just like, yeah, give me everything. We want everything. We want. How do people operate like this? Nevertheless, although it is difficult to quantify the true amount of Christian Zionists currently worldwide, a prominent theologian, Stephen Sizer, who has done extensive work on Zionism, was interviewed by TRT World. He was asked if the Christian Zionist movement is different than Theodore Herzl's, the creator of Zionism's movement. And he said, Christian Zionism is actually the dominant form of Zionism. It has been since before the Zionist movement emerged in the 1870s and then 1880s. There were Christians calling for the restoration of the Jews to Palestine from the 1820s, 1830s in the Balfour Declaration. With the demise of the Ottoman Empire, that Britain's entry, if you like, into the Middle East, which is, the Middle East is a Western term. It should be called Swana, Southwest Asia and North Africa. Nevertheless, having defeated the French, was to colonize Palestine. Stephen gives a global estimate about how many Christian Zionists exist worldwide. And he said Christian Zionists predate Jewish Zionists by at least 50 years, and today dominates the Zionist movement, at least 10-1, probably nearer to 20, 30-1. For every Jewish Zionist, there are 20 or 30 Christian Zionists. There are 20 or 30 people that are completely cool with that majority of them are completely cool with what's happening in Palestine, because it's to them fulfilling a prophecy that their Lord and Savior is going to come on a white horse with a sword. Because that makes sense to some people. That makes sense to some people. I don't understand how it makes sense to some people, but it does. Like, I can't. I don't know. But as far, excuse me. But back to this. But as far as the author and academic Tristan Strum research is concerned, as of the year 2022, there are 30 million Christian Zionists in the United States alone.
There's powerful niggardry at work.
30 million.
Thank Mayor Adams for that, bro.
I would have like some funny things to say, but I don't know what to say. When you start to like really look up stuff, is stuff funny anymore? I think things are funny. I think the way that you find humor in them is realizing like, one day I'm gonna die. And not to be morbid about it, but it's like, I'm gonna figure out what to do to be as great of a person as I possibly can be for myself and others, because I'm not gonna be here forever. And if there's wild things like this happening, then maybe I can do something about it by like informing you. Maybe so then you can be like, what is wrong with people? Fam, how people's brains work is fascinating. Now back to this. In fact, a Christian Zionist organization aptly called Kufi, they want to kill the Muslims in Palestine and just the people of Palestine, because not everybody in Palestine is Muslim. There are Christian Palestinians that are also being killed and also having their land dispossessed, and churches actually being bombed in Palestine. But funny enough, it's aptly called Kufi. Christian United for Israel claims, that's what Kufi stands for, to have 10 million members in the U.S. So please, that's the other thing I want you to remember. Do not equate Zionism to Judaism, because to be a Zionist is not attached just to one theological belief, and it's also a form of nationalism. It's about having a Jewish state, and Judaism is a religion. Also, it is even only for people of a it isn't even only for people of a theological belief system. I wrote this down, I can't read it. David Ben-Gurion, who was the first prime minister of Israel, better known as Palestine, he was an atheist. Like, David Ben-Gurion didn't believe in God. He wasn't of Jewish faith. He wasn't Christian. He wasn't Muslim. He wasn't anything. Theodore Herzl, the creator of Zionism, he wasn't of Jewish faith either. He was secular. Like, it was about secular stuff. The dude that made up Zionism, Jewish Zionism, himself didn't believe in the actual Jewish state as it is currently.
I need you to remember, bro, I don't know white people.
What drugs do people do to do the things that they do? Because audacity cannot just be the only thing driving these people to do the things that they do. There has to be some kind of like NZT, one of the pills that Neo took. There gotta be some form of drugs that these people do to do the things that they do and think that it is okay. You created an ideology, a movement to steal land from a people because you claim a people without land for land without people. Although there were people on that land, so it's better said, a people who wanted land and took land from some people.
Message!
For their religious belief that you didn't even believe in.
Message!
Herzl himself personified this chasm between East and West, according to an article. His attachment to Judaism was minimal. His knowledge of things Jewish was nebulous, consisted mainly of childhood memories of a Budapest synagogue. I used to go to Catholic school. I'm about as Christian as he is Jewish, and I'm Muslim now. You see how that works? You understand what's happening right now?
What more do you want from me?
Also, a side note, Judaism is a religion, sorry. It is not a race. Because to be a Jewish person has to do with faith. Race is a social construct. I don't know why we keep running this game that race is science, because it's not. If I'm not mistaken, the idea of race was created, I think, by a German person. Believe so, but it's definitely a social construct because it's not a thing. Everything has been about nations, colors, and whatnot. It has absolutely nothing because genetically speaking, just stop. But to be a Jewish person has to do with faith because race is a social construct. Anti-Semitism, which was actually coined, well, I mean, the term was used before Nazis, if I'm not mistaken, but Nazis really popularized the term anti-Semitism because they just didn't like Semitic people. But anti-Semitism is an all-encompassing form of hatred against Semitic people, like all Semitic people. That includes Arabs as well as some Ethiopian people and people who speak Aramaic. Someone can be anti-Jewish, though, because, again, Judaism is a religion, just like you can be Islamophobic because Islam. I don't know what it is to hate Christianity. I don't know what the word is. I guess just be anti-religion is just the all-encompassing. Someone can be anti-Jewish, which is a more precise definition in my understanding, honestly. For pragmatic purposes, though, let's say you want to know if you're Jewish. Like you want to know if you're Ashkenazi, Sephardic, and I forgot the other terms. It was difficult to get a DNA test until like 2020 when the Israeli High Court finally allowed it, like for people to, well, not, just to make it not a thing because like people were fighting against people wanting to get DNA tests because their argument was, oh, that sounds like something that the Nazis would do to figure out if you were of Jewish descent. Which the other thing we have to remember is that what those German Nazi people did and other people who follow the Nazi belief did is they took out people that looked like them for a race of people that they didn't look like. All of the people from Germany, from France, from Hungary, from good God, they killed a lot of people. From Poland, if I'm not mistaken, yep. A lot of people lost their lives by the hands of a group of people whose ideology was built around a lie. They went out of their way to other a whole group of people because they didn't believe what they believed. The idea of what happened during World War II, what Nazi Germany did, was not that they killed they killed people that look like them. That makes it even sicker when you think about it in the sense of you only forced yourself to find a way to justify taking someone's life because you said that they were different because they didn't believe what you believed and they didn't look like the ideal human that you weren't. The blonde hair, blue eyes is what Hitler was after. And he didn't have blonde hair, nor did he have blue eyes.
There's powerful niggardry at work.
So we need to really unpack that. Not right now. I just did a little bit of it, but just think about that. That the Nazis just, it was for joking purposes, only to add some levity to this, which I don't know how you can. It was white on white crime. Well, it was white crime. Like it was white people, or German people, killing other German people, other Polish, like I said, people Hungary, France, other, just because they were of a faith that they had to find a reason to hate because of them getting their ass kicked in World War I and Hitler needing to corral his people. So he figured, I need to find an enemy that we can be like us versus them. That way we can find a way back to power. This is a very, very, very stripped version of history from World War I to World War II. But again, This was about their theological beliefs, because race is a social construct. They had to create a reason outside of just these people's belief system, which either way it still wouldn't have justified it, but to take their lives. Think about how insane that is. Nevertheless, Gil Endahar, I feel like I got that name right. He wrote a book called The Jew, the Arab, A History of the Enemy. He provocatively suggests that both groupings have been defined by European Christianity. Yeah, people forget that European Christians didn't like European Jews. They banished them out of a lot of places. Because xenophobia it's just as old as time. Hate just been around for a long time, bro. The Jew, according to the European Christians, the Jew was defined as the religious other within, while the Arab was seen as the political other without, leading in fascinating ways to the division between religious studies and political theory. But that is another story, he states. Simply these two political identities, the Jew, the Arab, have co-constituted by, and most importantly, within Europe. He went on, in the Semites, Endahar goes on to argue that by now noticeably less invisible than the term Aryan, the term Semite has lost much of its currency, even if popular perceptions continue to construe it in highly segregated neighborhoods. In the vicinity of European racial and racist phantasms, he continues, the discursive shift from Semite to Jews and Arabs rewrites phantasmatic alliances and reconfigures the distinction between race and religion and politics, and ethnicity and race, while occluding or even excising, as it were, the Aryan and racist elements from equation. Perhaps more important, the shift both produces and sediments ancient opposition along even older theological political tracings, rendering its history invisible. So basically, he's tying the belief system to politics, and that, I just hate these other people. It's basically, I don't like these other group of people. I have to find a way. I gotta find the right way to not like them. Like, is what the European Christians, we gotta find a way to not like these people. How can one deal with themselves on a daily basis when they go out of their way to form a way to dislike somebody? It's almost, not to compare Michael Jordan to racism, even though he had the Hitler mustache for a little bit, but it's like Michael Jordan, when he would create false narratives in his head so that he can go out and win basketball games.
He knows exactly how many points LeBradford scored, and he wants to get that many or more in the first half.
That was going to be Jordan's plan for the next game against the Bullets, which just so happened to be the next night in Washington. Jordan was going to score, in the first half, what Smith scored total in the last game. It's been reported that after the game on March 19th, Smith approached Jordan as they walked off the court and said, "Nice game, Mike." As The Last Dance revealed, Smith never said this to Jordan. In fact, Jordan made it up in his head as a way to get himself motivated.
A couple of writers went up to Michael and said, "Did this ever happen?" And Michael was, with a smile, just like, "No, I made it up."
Instead, European Christians would create false narratives through separation of religion and politics to create groups of people in their heads that they don't like. They just, I don't like you because of these things. I have to find a way to justify me hating you. Sorry, but not to lose the plot. Let's get back to Joe Mazzulla, who is a polarizing character in the NBA. He is the youngest coach to win an NBA championship since 1970 at the age of 35. And again, he won with the Damn Boston Celtics. Joe has only been a full-time coach, I believe, since like 2003, and he served as the interim coach in 2022. Joe is black. Well, actually, Joe's mixed. Joe's father is Italian, Joe's mother is black. But according to how he carries himself, it could be surmised, even to the point of a fact maybe, that his identity is more wrapped around his faith. As the Boston Celtics were on their way to win their 18th NBA championship. God damn it. Joe was asked a question during a press conference. The question was in regard to the importance of Jason Kidd and himself being the first two black coaches to coach against each other in the NBA Finals. Joe's response was very obtuse and open to interpretation. He seemed frustrated by a non-controversial question. His answer was, I wonder how many of those coaches have been Christian. Like, how many of them have been Christian coaches?
Coaches. Given the plight sometimes of black head coaches in the NBA, do you think this is a significant moment? Do you take pride in this? How do you view this, or do you not see it at all?
I wonder how many of those have been Christian coaches.
That answer left the room silent, as though being a Christian holds the same weight considering the ridicule and persecution black people still, to this day, face in this country. It is a false equivalency because this corporation, paraded as a country, which is the USA, was not built and run off of its hatred of people of the Christian faith. Like, that's just not a thing. Being a Christian in the US didn't get people hung. And if it did, sorry for misrepresenting history, but far and wide in the States, that wasn't a thing. Being Christian does not limit your ceiling in your respective workplace. If I were to go to any job and I let them know that I'm Christian, it's not going to stop me from getting a raise. Joe Mazzulla has been on this crusade that oddly mirrors I'm not black, I'm OJ, for a while through his Christian lens.
Get a chance to meet with the royal family, and if not, how was it like having them there in the building?
Jesus, Mary, and Joseph?
The Prince and Princess of Wales.
Oh, no, I did not. I'm only familiar with one royal family. I don't know too much about that one. Thank you.
Any other questions?
But I'm glad hopefully they're Celtic fans. Yeah, thank you.
Last year, he said, my faith is just as important as my race, if not more important. Mazzulla told Anscape, which I believe is an online publication, he told Mark Spears over a year ago, in order to reach different people, you have to be your whole self, and you can't put yourself in a box. I mean, you just kind of contradicted yourself by saying that your faith trumps like your race, which is your ethnicity, like your cultural background. Because then now you're just limiting yourself to the one thing, when if you would have talked about being black, and well, for your case, being black and Italian, that's two more things. That makes three. And you should know that because you play basketball and y'all gotta win by points. And actually, the Boston Celtics they shot the most threes in the NBA last year, if I'm not mistaken. Like, you could count, Joe. It's weird. This sounds as though he thinks being knowledgeable and proud of his ethnic identity blocks him from connecting with people. But I would argue, honestly, on the contrary, knowing who you are separate from your theological beliefs can bring you even closer to people. You'll better understand your humanity, your history, and your heritage, which can better shape your identity. Joe Mazzulla just recently purchased a Rottweiler for he and his family, which is probably the blackest dog you could own. Like, the blackest. But you just want to be the one thing. But buying a Rottweiler, it's kind of black, man. Kind of make you two things. Whatever. But he said he got the dog because of the perceived obscurity of the dog's character.
Rottweiler, they're misunderstood dogs. And so I think they're wrongly, perceived. When you have a Rottweiler and you walk around and you see people
cross the street.
Yes. But I think that's no different than like humans and people and how you judge people is like, they're very misunderstood.
I wonder if there are moments from your life where you felt misunderstood.
Perhaps being an enigma to the masses is something Joe relates to. That brings me to a show, that I came across not too long ago. Actually, I think maybe yesterday. It's called We Are Lady Parts. It's a dope show. It's on one of them streaming services. I would plug it, but one, I'm not getting paid for this. Two, I'm not getting paid for this. And three, let me make that clear again, I'm not getting paid for this. But if you just Google, not getting paid by that one either, We Are Lady Parts, you'll find the show. It's about a punk rock band formed of Muslim women from different backgrounds. One of the characters is Bisma. I got that name right. She's a cartoonist who she has this dope. I wish they would actually show more of where this comic was going, because it's like a comic about these women that get possessed during their menstruation and go on a killing spree. And she explained it to some people that wanted to possibly purchase it, that it was like Handmaid's Tale and Rugrats. I'd never seen Handmaid's Tale in my life and I refuse to watch it, but I love Rugrats. So I want to know what that comic is about. But she's also the bass player in the band. She's a wife and a mother. And she's a peacekeeper of the group, which is a trope in and of itself. But again, can't be here all day, all night, or whenever this drop for you, whenever you catch it. Nevertheless, it's a great show. It was created, written, and directed by Naida Mansour. Pray I got that name right. Feel like I did, though. But in season 2, episode 4, called Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood, Bisma was about to leave her hair appointment when she went to grab her, and then she went to go grab a headscarf. When she went to go grab her headscarf, her friend joked, about not covering up her work. Bisma looked at her friend though, and she was like, come on, I'm Muslim. I gotta cover my head up. And her friend reassured her that she sees her and she understands what she identifies as. But she also had to let her remember that she is a black woman. And I found that to be very powerful. That scene shows the intersectionality that arises when you allow yourself to wear different hats or hijabs. There's no pun intended. It probably was corny. Look, I wrote this down. So if you're watching this all the way through, thank you. What you are and who you are two totally different things. So identity is a powerful tool in understanding your autonomy. Finding yourself takes true introspection. That can be painful when you peel the layers back of the things that you align with, of the things you align yourself with. Finding how you can be seen through those things that takes care from you and understanding from those you hold dear to you. Your theological and religious identity is a community, but it doesn't trump your ethnic identity at all. Those two things work in tandem, but one isn't more than the other. It just shows something we all find solace in and what helps our moral compass. But if you are being honest with yourself, you can't live like other people of the same faith when you factor in your ethnic background. You have to realize that you are more than what you believe you are. So although you may be Muslim, maybe Jewish, maybe Christian, maybe Catholic, maybe Protestant, maybe all of these things, what you are, who you are, two totally different things. That's not to say that you can't hold dear your religious identity, but to the point that Joe Mazzulla said, you don't want to put yourself in a box. If anything, you want to know more about yourself, more about your culture and where you came from. That way you can know where you're headed. I feel like a NBC rainbow should come over my head and I should be like, more you know, right? I don't know, whatever. But the shit is layered. Religion is like the condiment to your personality, not the main dish. So this isn't me looking to land-base Joe Mazzulla for who he prays to. This is just a critique on how it seems he wants to minimize his blackness for whatever reason. The commissioner of the NBA seems to understand the significance of the moment. Adam Silver, why can't I say words? Adam Silver said, and I quote, "I think there's significance to having 2 black head coaches in the finals, and frankly, I wish there wasn't." Silver said Friday afternoon at a Boys and Girls Club dedication in Dorchester. "I think we've made tremendous progress there," Adam Silver said. I don't understand why Joe Mazzulla didn't just piggyback on that white man's answer. That answer is basically saying it's whack, we got to celebrate something like this. You crackers are racist. I mean, like, that was the easy, like, he could have just been like, yeah, word. He could have just been in the back of Adam Silver. It's just said word. That, like, fam. Adam Silver went on to say, "I think people should take note of the fact that there are 2 African-American head coaches. On one hand, I want them to take note of it, but at the same time, I don't want them to take that, Lord, I'm going to learn how to read. I swear I will. I don't want that to take away from the merit system that we have in terms of coaching. Although J.J. Redick just became the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers with only AAU on his resume for coaching, and he's coaching one of the most storied franchises within your sport. Whatever. The merit system that we have in terms of coaching, and that to not take away from the fact that they are head coaching these teams. Of course, not because they're African American, but because they're tremendous coaches. Again, that was a very concise, to the point answer. He basically removed the race narrative, and stepped on that whole thing of people's hate for DEI along with affirmative action, and placed their accomplishments solely on them being great coaches, not being black. Adam Silver's position isn't groundbreaking. It isn't earth-shattering. It's just a human response, bro. Like, why is Joe so awkward? Like, he understands the misunderstanding of the Rottweiler, because he himself is not like a Rottweiler, but he's misunderstood. But it seems like it's by his own doing, though, that he kind of causes this weird tension in certain respects some of the times when he talks to people. He's a very odd guy, peculiar character. He was a good basketball player, though, until he got injured. Sucks for him, but he's an NBA champion, so.
So we happy with the Celtics winning?
No, fucking Lakers fans, baby. Fuck the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, I just hate to see certain people happy. What's the guy's name?
Jason
Bill
Tatum.
Simmons.
Bill Simmons, man. I like him and I hate him at the same time, man. So, hey, Bill Simmons, if you're listening, man, fuck you. You used to hate Kobe and say shit about Kobe that I'll never forgive you for. And I hate Boston.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
My most racist experience in my life was in Boston.
Let's hear about this.
Even Jason Kidd, he gave the most on-point, tired old black man answer. It was a real easy question to answer, a layup of a question, again, no pun intended. And Jason Kidd got the same question that Adam Silver got, he got the same question that Joe Mazzulla got, but those two, I believe, answered the question before Joe. He just said it's always a discussion because it doesn't happen a lot. He was like, in 75, he was 2. Joe Mazzulla wasn't even born. So I think for that to take place is huge. It just shows how far we've come, but we also have still a ways to go. I think it means something that we just have to continue to keep building on it. Jason Kidd didn't stand on the soapbox. Jason Kidd didn't put up a black power fist with John Carlos. To quote the article that was written by Vincent Goodwill, and these quotes are from his article. The reporter who asked Joe the question in the first place was the one that wrote this article. He said Mazzulla has the right to embrace his religion. He has the right to lean on it to help in his professional and personal walk. He has the right to look in the mirror and not see a black man first, but a Christian man with strong beliefs. But if he's pulled over in Boston, the police will see his last name on his license, but before they find out anything else about him, they'll see a black man first. So, Joe, your walk with God is not and was not ever the issue. Your identity is completely and solely up to you. But the issue that arises from you answering the question in the way that you did, with the energy that you gave, leads one to believe that you don't see your blackness as important as your faith. When you walk into that church, you're a Christian. When you walk out of that church, you're a black man. I know Joe probably remembers a few years ago when Dylan Roof walked into a church and took the lives of several of the people who went to that church. Dylan Roof was a white boy, white man, who was at a church of black people. He took their lives. I believe he wrote a manifesto about it. He was taken out of that horrendous scene in handcuffs. And then I think they took him to McDonald's because Dylan Roof in that church was a Christian. But outside of that church, he was a white man.
Message!
Make sure you keep your do-rag cape rolled. All right, peace.
'Cause I'm just a soul losing intentions.